and noted author Bob Fulton in the studio with us this morning. Well, we've had Bob on before talking about this great book that he wrote, it's been out over a year now, hasn't it, Bob?
It came out last July.
Last July, almost a year then. Yeah. Buried at Home Plate. All the great old stories of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and now you're going to be at the Historical and Genealogical Society to talk about it. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, voted Best Personal Injury Law Firm, the Best of Indiana County Contest. Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Jonathan, you got a great program coming up.
Yeah, it's great that we're able to host Bob and talk about baseball sort of in the middle of the season right now. Bob will be joining us on Tuesday, June 18th at 6:30 in the Old National Guard Armory. So that's a free event for anyone who wants to attend. So it's a great way to learn a couple of the more unique stories of Pirates baseball and see some of the displays that we have on surrounding that. We have Bob actually loaned us some items to put on display. So behind him it will be autographed images of Pirates players and some programs and a couple of other memorabilia items, and we have a Indiana County baseball exhibit also up to sort of pair with his talk. So,
speaking of which, Bob, you've never seen this because nobody has ever seen a baseball season like this one around Indiana County, huh?
You know, I came to the Gazette in 1976, and I would never have dreamed that an Indiana High baseball team would reach the state final. That's just an amazing accomplishment in itself.
And this afternoon they'll be playing for the state championship, the Quad A state championship. We've seen some great baseball down through the years here in Indiana County, and whether it's Indiana County League, we just had all the little leaguers here in the studio, and we've seen some great little league championship action. We've never seen it on the high school level, though.
No, and you know, I'm hoping that the baseball team can break this this grip that the opponents have in state championship games in all sports. We just had two basketball teams last year losing the finals and one this year, so we're due to win.
Yeah. Well, we did get a swim championship this year out of Indiana High. That's the first ever team championship, but it's going to be a fascinating watch here this afternoon to see if that happens. Speaking of fascinating, it's been a few years since the Pirates have won themselves a World Series title. 1979 was a couple of years ago, anyway. But you have been spending some time down through the years, catching up on the Pirates lore, keeping the notes, and then you fashioned them into this book, Buried at Home Plate, which is actually based upon a story of something that happened at a Pittsburgh ballpark.
I was just telling Jonathan that some of the items are right out of Ripley's Believe It or Not. You read them and you think, this couldn't have happened, but they did. And, of course, Fred Carroll was a member of the 1887, they were the Alleghenies then, before they became the Pirates, and he had a pet monkey who had died just before the season started. And they had a ceremony on opening day and buried the monkey beneath home plate. And since he was a catcher, that allowed him to be close to his companion.
And then you come up with all of these other stories, which I recall talking to you before was just a labor of collecting stories that you had heard and kept in a file or in some way for all of these years till you finally said, I'm putting them all together, I'm making a book out of it.
Some of them I kept in my head. You know, my father took me to my first game in 1961. And I've heard the stories through the years, and then you research the stories and find out, yes, they did occur. And that's why in the book I've included so many dates. If anyone's skeptical, they can look in an old newspaper and find it's true, it happened.
You can look it up. You can look it up. So as you have been talking about this book now for almost a year, in various settings. You are going to be coming to the Historical and Genealogical Society. And Jonathan, you said the date and time is again?
Tuesday, June 18th at 6:30.
Okay, so just coming up next week.
Yeah, very quickly here.
Yeah. You're going to be sharing stories again. What are some of the stories that really stand out to you and that you'll be highlighting at the event on Tuesday?
I think the strangest one, and it would never occur in these modern times, was 1894. I love the oldest stories, the 19th century ones, where there was a tie game in Cincinnati, and a Cincinnati player hit a ball into the left field bleachers. Back then, that was in play, and the Pirates left fielder and center fielder went after the ball, and some Cincinnati fans sort of surrounded him, kept him from picking up the ball. Well, one finally did, but then a Cincinnati fan pulled a gun on him and was even identified in the newspaper reports.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you look at that and you say, well, that'll never happen today. Hopefully not.
Yeah, we hope not. But, you know, back in the day, a stadium such as that, you'd have a rope around the outfield or even nothing around the outfield to serve as a barrier. There were no leaping catches at the wall back then because there was no wall.
You know, the first World Series, 1903, it does mention fans ringing the outfield, and any ball hit into the fans was a ground rule double.
Yeah. Amazing. Just amazing. And we've seen the photos from back in the day, actually having to do with the photos. The newspaper photographer would walk right out onto the field and right next to the catcher or the pitcher, as the play was going on, there would be the photographer taking the picture of it.
They took a risk, more so than the photographers today, that's for sure.
Yeah, pretty amazing things. Some of the other stories, of course, of the Three River Stadium, of Forbes Field, of what was it, Exposition Park. Yeah, all of those stories. Have you gotten other stories that people have told you since you published the book?
You know, I really haven't heard any that I would have liked to have included, except for a story about, I bought a book about haunted baseball, and apparently, maybe 15, 20 years ago, some of the Pirates were staying in a hotel, I think it was in Tampa, and they could have sworn they saw apparitions.
Oh, yeah?
That would have been nice to include.
Oh, man, and it might have had to do with the lobster they had that night, too.
Might have.
But you never know. Jonathan, this program coming up on Tuesday, what was the origination of it? What made you want to do this?
Well, we had done a baseball exhibit in the past, and our program committee is regularly looking for authors and books that are being released locally. And, someone said, well, what about Bob Fulton and his new book? I just bought it. I read it. It's interesting. And so the talk kind of stemmed from that. And we reached out to Bob. His schedule worked. Our schedule worked. And now the event's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, terrific. So, again, it's at 6:30, did you say?
Yeah, 6:30 in the Armory. And there will be refreshments. It is a free event. There will be refreshments, and it will all be baseball stadium themed.
Really?
So, yeah, we're talking hot dogs, pop, some,
peanuts and Cracker Jack.
Peanuts and Cracker Jack, that kind of refreshment type.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff. Three Rivers Stadium, of course, is big in a lot of people's memories. Not as many people, Bob, remember Forbes Field. I went to Forbes Field once when I was a kid, but Three Rivers Stadium a lot. I remember I was there the night Thurman Munson died, and that came onto the they flashed that onto the scoreboard, and the collective gasp that you heard. And I recall once being in center field underneath that giant scoreboard in center field at Three Rivers Stadium. Pirates were playing the Giants, and Clemente hit a ground ball. I believe it was Clemente. Hit a ground ball up the middle. And, Willie Mays always went down to one knee to field a ball in the outfield, a grounder in the outfield. And he didn't this time. And it rolled between his legs. And it went all the way to the center field wall. And Clemente turned on the Jets. And I believe that he rounded the bases, went all the way around to score on what should have been a single. But what I recall about it was we were there in the first or second row underneath the scoreboard, and the ball rolled right below us on the field, and Willie Mays was swearing as he ran after that ball, just cursing because he'd made that bonehead play. But that's what I remember. There's my Pirates story from watching the Buccos play.
That's one of the rare mistakes Willie Mays probably ever made.
Yeah, pretty amazing stuff. I remember watching Tommy John there at the park as well, warming up in the bullpen before a game, and my buddy dropped his drink down on Tommy John's uniform. That was not a happy circumstance on that day out there. But those kinds of things are what fill up your book.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Tommy John is after he had the surgery that is now identified with his name, he won more games after the surgery.
Yeah. He was a fireballer before then, wasn't he?
Yeah, and then he became more of a junk ball pitcher, but kept winning.
He learned how to do it. Jonathan, what else do people need to know about the event? Parking?
So parking, the Society's lot, and then metered parking around the Society. We're hoping the weather's nice, and parking there on Washington Street for the event as well. And then just come in the main doors. Doors will open at 6, and folks are welcome to tour the museum before the talk, and then maybe check out the baseball exhibit and some of the memorabilia. And then we'll hear Bob talk for about 45 minutes to an hour, however, he feels compelled, the number of stories that he feels compelled to share.
He gets it rolling.
Yes, because we have had some authors that, they just captivate the audience. And
sure.
So I think Bob has the material that's just right for that.
He could go long into the night. Gentlemen, thanks so much.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
We appreciate it. It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com. Boomer Sports, brought to you by S&T Bank. People Forward Banking.
Hi, I'm Garrett Greek, your local mortgage banker at S&T Bank. The sunshine is back. Let us help you find the perfect home to enjoy the sights and sounds of summer. Visit me at one of our Indiana